Hi, I'm Lorenza and founder of the Gwen Group. This is Women Behind the Brand, where we shine a spotlight on founders, entrepreneurs, and women in business. This is their story.
Welcome to Women Behind the Brand, the Gwen Group interview series where we get to know the real woman behind the business. At Gwen, we believe visibility is about more than promoting what you sell. It's about giving people the opportunity to understand who you are, what you know, what you have lived through, and why the work you do matters. In the series, I sit down with women founders, entrepreneurs, and women in business to talk about what they're building, the experience that shaped them, and the conversations we should be having more openly as women in business. Today, I am joined by Ilonka Ras. Hello, Ilonka.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So as a quick introduction from my side, and of course, we'll get more into this, Ilonka is the founder of The Wealthy Owner, which helps women business owners rewire how they think about money so that they can increase their profit, manage their money well, and build wealth outside their business. And for those of you that don't know, Ilonka is also our Gwen in-house business strategy coach for our elite members. But you can find out more about that emailing me at Lorenza. So yeah, let's get into it. Welcome again to the woman behind the brand.
Yeah, it's awesome to be here.
Rightio. So I think let's just get straight into it. So I want to bring out kind of the uncomfortable truths in this podcast series and really just kind of like disrupt things a little bit and get to the point. So how can a woman be running a profitable business, bringing in good money and still feel like she is absolutely broke, anxious, as though she has absolutely nothing to show for?
Yeah, I think the answer to that question is really all about the mindset. Firstly, like how we think about money is how we act with money, right? And I think especially as women, we have so many old paradigms around money, maybe how you grew up and the lessons that you learned just in terms of being a woman, and maybe you have a story that you're not good with money or you don't know how to manage money. And so what I see in my clients often is that old belief system that they have is really dictating how they act and behave with their money inside of their business. But I think the biggest thing really is when it comes to the revenue inside of your business, there's a lot of hype around revenue and growing the business, making more money.
Yes.
And what I see my clients do often is they think that more revenue is the answer to all their problems. But more revenue often creates more problems than we anticipate because we don't necessarily think about all the work that is required to actually keep the revenue up. And so if your business isn't running efficiently, if you don't have profit baked into that revenue, then more revenue is actually just creating more chaos. So I always teach my clients to make profit a non-negotiable and to make profit the queen in the business rather than the revenue. So yeah, does that answer your question? I'm like, how do I keep this very
I think so. No. I think, I think that's good. That's good. But I think, let's kind of bring it back down to you and potentially having lived some of this experience yourself. So when you were growing your business, reinvesting everything back into the business and telling yourself that the profit would come later. So you touched briefly on profit now, but I think that's kind of a cornerstone of how you create things. So what was really happening behind the scenes that forced you yourself to change the way you were handling your money?
Yeah. So I think I have always been very focused on the money. And so I've always been an entrepreneur my entire life. I think I had like a normal day job when I was 16 years old, doing some temp work at Fashini in Bedfordview. Like that was the only time I actually worked for quote unquote boss, right? And so when I started my entrepreneurial journey, owning businesses, starting businesses, building businesses, it just became apparent very quickly that if you don't have profit, you actually don't have stability. And so I also fell into that trap of thinking, okay, if I can just sign one more client, then my cash flow challenges will not be a problem. And then when I entered our family business after my studies at University of Johannesburg, I saw the same thing. So we would, in the family business, the focus was very much, if we can just get another client, then this will just resolve everything. All the cash flow problems will be gone if we just have more cash coming in. But I very soon realized that actually, no, it's how you manage the cash inside of the business. And so for me, it's just always been very top of mind. I remember listening to this book that Deepak Chopra did. It was an audio book. I think it's called The A to Z of Affluence. And I would listen to that book on my way to the office every single day. It was so funny. My kids eventually thought that I knew this guy, Deepak. And he's like their uncle or something because he's just like always in the car, right? Talking to them. So I think my mindset and my focus has just always been on managing money well, because I just understood that there is power in being able to manage it well, especially as a woman and especially as an entrepreneur, especially as a business owner. So yeah, there wasn't like any dire rags to riches story that sort of led me there. I think I was just always hyper aware and always trying to figure out how can we make business easier? How can we make it simpler? How can we make it work for us? So that's just always been my focus.
Okay. And aside from Deepak and his A to Z of affluence, is that what it was called?
Yeah, I think it's something along those lines. It might have a subtitle attached to it, but I'm not sure.
Okay. What other books were potentially really kind of integrated or part of your life that helped you to create the coaching kind of package that you have now?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has been centered around spirituality, mindset, and just how we are driven by what we think daily and our internal belief systems, whether that's around time, around money, around being a leader in your business. So there are so many books that I've read. I remember specifically one of my favorites is a book by Florence Scovel Shinn. She actually has a series of like money books. And if you just search her name, you will find there's actually a book that has like multiple books inside of the one book, which is amazing. So it's almost like short stories around money. So that has been very impactful. But I think from a practical perspective, Profit First by Mike Michalowicz has been a game changer. And also Simple Numbers by Greg, I forget his surname. Greg somebody.
We'll have to look him up. Okay.
Yeah, we'll have to look it up. I'm not really good with names when it comes to books, but yeah, those books have been really impactful. And then also Clockwork, also by Mike Michalowicz, which is very much centered around efficiency and doing things very simply inside of your business. So my entire coaching business has basically been built around what you think and how you feel, and then the actions you take inside of your business. And I'm just a firm believer that the business is 80% your psychology as the owner and 20% your strategy, right? You can have the best strategy in the world, but if the mindset isn't there to back it up, you're just not going to follow through on those plans. So a lot of the work that I do with my clients is centered around the mindset.
Yeah. So I'd love to get into the mindset stuff, a little bit more. I think my first approach would always be like, create the system, create a budget, kind of what can I do in order to organize myself. But I think as you were mentioning now, the beliefs and behaviors that are, I'm not sure if sabotaging is the right word, but kind of sabotaging women business owners, so they know what they should be doing. And maybe they've even got some of those systems implemented, but they keep kind of hitting their head against the wall. Like how do we approach this? How do we tackle this?
So it always starts with the awareness first, right? It starts with seeing your own patterns. And I think this is where a coach is very helpful, because we often don't see our own blind spots. We don't see the thoughts and the beliefs that we have that is actually keeping us stuck or keeping us small. And so for me, that entire process of just shining a light of awareness on the things that you're thinking. So you can look at what you are actually saying to yourself often. Right? So maybe it's something like, I just don't have time. I don't have the resources. There is never enough money. Like, what is the story that's running in your head? That is the thought. That is the limiting belief. And some of our beliefs are powerful. They help us, they serve us. And some of them are, like you said, limiting us, keeping us small.
Yes.
I don't believe it's a self-sabotage. I believe it's a way our brain tries to keep us safe, which isn't a bad thing necessarily, right? It's a good thing to keep ourselves safe, but it's not always useful to us, especially in business, because it requires us to be okay with failing. It requires us to be okay with getting out of our comfort zone and doing things that don't necessarily feel safe in the moment. So yeah, that's where we start, just recognizing the pattern and then doing the work to rewire that.
Yeah. And I think when you spoke about awareness as the first port of call, and also quite related to the body, like if I have a thought, so that is obviously an emotion, but like, where do I feel it? And I've started to become a bit more conscious about what's happening in my body when I have certain thoughts, like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do it? and it just goes up and up and up into my throat, and it just creates this. Or some other thoughts might actually go lower into my belly, and it's like it just goes tight over there. So how these thoughts affect our body, obviously through our emotions, and then create our decisions, what we make, like whatever decisions we make about something, fear-based decisions, panicked-based decisions, which is just not good. So a question. So how do we start to even first become aware of, let's just say there is somebody who doesn't even know that they have this kind of recurring pattern, or that it comes from a certain.
Yeah. So I always like to look at the results that you're creating in your life, right? So if you look at circumstantially, what are the results that you have in your business and your life? So let's say you don't have profit inside of your business. That's a result, right? So something is creating that, whether that is the systems that you have in your business, whether that is the decisions that you're making around money. It could be multiple things, right? But I always work from the premise that you got yourself here somehow. And so we want to figure out what that was and how you got here so that we can shift it, adjust it. So I always start with what is the result that you either have that you don't want, or a result that you would like to create for yourself. Then we look at what is happening in your body, because that emotional cue is actually a clue, right? It's giving you an insight into whether this is something that's expanding you or something that's contracting you, making you feel small, making you show up differently, like you said, in scarcity or fear. So when you notice what that emotion is, we all know when an emotion feels good versus when it doesn't. And it doesn't mean that the emotions that don't feel good aren't necessarily the emotions that you want to like not feel, because sometimes you think about something like having courage. Courage in the moment doesn't necessarily feel good, right? But it might be the thing you need in order to take the action you need to take to get the result you want to get. So it's not about good and bad emotions. It's really about, is the emotion that I'm feeling actually driving the actions that I need to take in order to get the result that I want? And so once you've pinpointed the emotion and you can feel it in your body, which I have noticed is often hard for people to do. We're so much in our heads, I think, especially as women. I see this in men as well. So it's definitely not just a woman thing, but we're so much in our own heads about things that we are almost disconnected from that feeling inside of our body. So that practice of just going back into your body, noticing where you're feeling it. And even if you can't name the emotion, maybe just starting with, what does it feel like? Does it feel tight? Does it feel like electricity moving? Does it feel like a vibration? Like what is the feeling? Yeah, exactly. And sometimes that will help you to actually get to a place where you pinpoint it. So for an example, I was on a coaching call last night, and the question was, what are you currently thinking about your numbers? Like what emotion comes up when you think about your current revenue or current profit? And for me, the thing that I noticed was like this, almost like a gasping for air, right? And so it's hard sometimes to name it. But when I sat with that, like, oh, it's like I'm gasping for air, then I could go, oh, the emotion is actually panic or desperation, right? And then once you know that, you can ask yourself, okay, what am I actually thinking that's creating that inside of my body? So maybe I'm telling myself it's not enough. The money that I'm making is not enough. I don't have what it takes. Maybe this is never going to work out, right? So there's so many thoughts that can be creating that emotion. But once you know what the thoughts are, you can actually work with them. So once they're on the table, they're available for us to question and poke holes into, and eventually shift into something that's more empowering.
Yes. I think what I would struggle the most, this is like a mini coaching session now, but the very like kind of busyness inside of my head. And what I have started doing is literally imagining these thoughts in my head and like pulling them down into my heart, and just like pulling them down until my mind starts to quieten, because I have this feeling that like maybe my heart can actually hold more than the busyness in my head. But I'm not sure if that's completely related.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think whatever works for you to help you to just get to a more neutral place, right? To get to I don't necessarily want to say a better feeling place, just a more neutral place. There is a saying that goes, when emotions are high, intelligence is low. So we don't want to make decisions from a place of like extreme hype or an extreme low, right? So we want to get ourselves to that neutral place. And whether that is maybe meditating, I know for many people, meditation doesn't feel like it's helping them necessarily. Sometimes it's just breathing. Sometimes it's going out and just being in nature, taking some fresh air in.
Exercising.
exercising. Yeah. So just moving your body is a way that you can quiet the mind a little bit. So yeah, I think whatever works for you is what works for you, right? So there's no one
Yes.
fit for everyone. But I think the point is getting yourself to a place where you feel a little bit more neutral and calmer and then taking action or making decisions from that place.
Yeah, I just wanted to also ask around becoming more aware. Do you have like a mini writing exercise or question prompt that someone could just kind of sit down with after the session or today at some point and just ask that question and just kind of start to unpack where they're at?
Yeah. I think it's actually a very natural process that happens, but instead of looking for like the negative thoughts or the negative beliefs, I would start with, what do I want? What do I want to create? What are the results that I want to see inside of my business? And just writing that down, your brain is very quickly going to offer you the yeah, but. And those are the thoughts that you want to work on, right? So whenever you think about what you want to create inside of your business, so let's say, for example, you want to sign 10 clients in the next 90 days, whatever it is, your brain is going to offer you the, yeah, but what about this? Or this won't work. Or those are the limiting thoughts. And as soon as you catch it, it's really just about getting still enough to just listen to what is actually coming up in your brain. And it's probably the things that come up daily anyway. Like it's incessant thoughts that you're thinking over and over again. So you probably already know what they are. You're just not looking at them, right? Because maybe you think this is just the way it is. Like we're just reporting the news. So we want to just notice what they are, write them down, and then start questioning them. And it can be as simple as, is this really true? Can I absolutely know that this is true, right? So for example, if I tell myself I'm not good with money, is it true? Maybe it's true in certain instances, but is it true everywhere in my life, right? And so just asking yourself really good questions is a way to poke holes in that limiting belief that you have. So that's where I would start. Just firstly, starting with what you want, catching anything that comes up that's like the brain saying, nope, that's not going to happen or that's not possible, and writing that sentence down. And that's where you start.
Cool. That's a great starting point. I think so many women, start businesses because they want greater freedom, flexibility, financial security. But yeah, I think that takes a lot more hard work than just kind of doing the work in the business. It's also doing the work on yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Your business will not grow beyond what you are willing to grow, right?
Yes.
So if you're not doing the work inside of yourself, that will eventually impact the business. I mean, I can see it in my clients who are just starting out and who have very little business experience, how they stop themselves from actually creating the success that they want. And there are many things that are stacked against us when it comes to building businesses, right? There is no guarantee. So even if you have the best mindset, the business isn't necessarily going to pan out the way you want it to. That's just business. It's part of the game. But it's about the resilience and how you deal with those challenges along the way. But I also see my business owners who are making millions a year and are making really good profits still struggle with the same mindset challenges of, for example, feeling guilty for taking time off, right? Or feeling guilty for having the extra money and buying the new car or taking the vacation. And so these are things we want to question, because ultimately it's going to impact how you show up and what you do, right? So yeah, it's important work.
Yeah. Oh, Ilonka, thank you so much. I think that was just a lightning little spotlight on what you do. And thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. I hope somebody or every single person has taken at least one good thing out of this conversation. That would be a great goal.
Yeah.
And then, of course, everybody watching, if you'd like to learn more about Ilonka Ras, you can head over to her Gwen Group Collective profile. I will also have her social media and other details down below. And for obviously follow along here at the Woman Behind the Brand for more conversations with women building interesting businesses, sharing valuable experiences, and doing the work that deserves to be seen. Thanks a lot, Ilonka.
Thank you.
Bye.